Unbound Radio. Civilized talk about unruly subjects.
And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people. Literally, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people.
The smoke in the air of our Concord bridges and Pearl Harbors is always smelled first by the farmers who come from their simple homes to find the fire and fight.
If you embark on instituting a society where government protects you from yourself, you're in big trouble, and that's what they're doing. That's all government is force. I mean, do you have a choice about paying Medicare taxes? Government uses force to mold behavior or mold the economy.
Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday edition, not Wednesday. John, I don't even know what day of the week it is. Can you say just a little bit busy? Good grief.
Oh, yes.
Holy smokes. Yeah, anyway, folks, it's Tuesday, and we've confirmed that. And we've got part.
Wish it was Wednesday.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, no, I'll tell you what. But we got part 2 of our little 2-part series on, the state of America and, just how Americans are snapping by the millions, how they're depressed. And for a country that really has more accumulated wealth and the highest quality of life as far as living standards in the world, how it's interesting that we have so much, yet we're so miserable. I highlighted Michael Snyder's piece about how Americans number one in a whole host of categories that have to do with depression, suicide. But I want to go over real quick some of these statistics one more time before we get into where this all leads to. More people have been diagnosed with mental disorders in America than anywhere else on earth. Mind you, John, there are other countries that have many more people than we do.
Oh, absolutely, Joe. That comes out to roughly 56 million Americans. 1 in 6.
That's right. Back in 1962, John, only 13% of all Americans were obese. Today, approximately 36% of all Americans are obese. Being fat causes depression. It just does. The quality of our food, folks, has gone down the gutter. With the introduction of GMO foods, the fact that a lot of the foods that you get from the grocery store now have little to no nutritional value. It's just all filler. And where does it go?
Not only that, Joe, everything's crammed full of high fructose corn syrup. And
yes.
The difference between high fructose corn syrup and regular cane sugar is high fructose corn syrup is processed in the liver, and it is not broken down correctly and is stored away as fat. And since it's concentrated high fructose corn syrup, there's enough sugar content in 1 can of cola to last the body 3 days.
Yeah.
Sugar.
John, according to Pew Research Center, only 51% of all American adults are currently married. Back in 1960, that was 72%. And at this point, approximately 1 out of every 3 children in America live in a home without a father. So there are a lot of things that contribute to the situation in this country. But where does it all lead? What happens when people feel desperate? We'll talk about that when we come back, because you always end up going to a place where you'll be put to work. We'll talk about that and more when the Freedom Link returns right here on Unbound Radio.
For hundreds of years, an elite group of oligarchs have ruled the land, fueled by a legacy of sex, money, power, and greed. In the last 60 years, their power has become more consolidated as they have become more organized. Their very own white papers and other documents show the diabolic plans they have in store for the population. Shade the Motion Picture, an Embellis and Burmis film, featuring Shepard Embellis, Jason Burmis, Alex Jones, Clyde Lewis, Webster Tarpley, Jordan Maxwell, Rosalind Peterson, Michael Murphy, reggae artist Skoll, Luke Rudowski, Servano Gonzalez, and more. Buy your copy of Shade the Motion Picture DVD right now at shadethemotionpicture.com.
Freedom Link with Joe Joseph. Weekdays from 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Be there or be square.
Welcome back, folks. And we are discussing how America just seems to be going down the tubes fast. And when I say tubes, I mean there's so many reasons why. And how peculiar, how ironic is it that the country that really has everything is the most miserable. And misery and depression, desperation, will cause you to do things that you wouldn't normally do, and oftentimes make you end up in prison. So tonight we're going to talk about the burgeoning prison industrial complex, and more specifically, I hate to call it prison industrial complex, because what it is, if you take a look at the slave labor camps over in China, that is exactly what they're setting up here.
Oh, absolutely, Joe. It's a lot of money in privatizing the prisons and having the prisoners do the work for you.
Yes, it is. And well, let's get into this, okay? So the reason why I'm starting this, and I've gone through this, is because people are truly depressed. There is a sense of desperation. More people are struggling now than ever before. Income levels are at 1995 levels. You've got a record number of people in poverty, at or below the poverty line, on food stamps, on public assistance. We have this budget crisis that continues to go on. And you know that austerity is right around the corner. People's backs are starting to get against the wall. Now we're getting to the point where a lot of people have nothing to lose. And this is the point where you're going to start to see people get pissed. And I have a feeling that it's going to be soon, that you're going to start to see a shift in consciousness and an awareness that they've been bamboozled. Because the powers that be, John, are running out of tricks.
Oh yeah, the mirrors are about ready to shatter. The game's about up, and they know it. They don't have much more room to maneuver. It's coming into a funnel, and they've got to act, and they've got to act now. Yes.
So why I started focusing on this is a very good friend of mine now. Pastor Kent Hovind is in jail up in New Hampshire, in Berlin, New Hampshire, being persecuted for speaking out against the nefarious forces that are destroying this country and the world. And he was put in jail for it as a matter of fact, the IRS had to rewrite tax law to get him in jail. So while Bernie Madoff got away with bilking billions for years and years and years. And John Corzine of MF Global still walks free today, even though everybody knows that they openly stole how many people's bank accounts, how many people's retirement funds, all for what? For greed. It just went to the other banks, and he walks free today. Stole billions, John. Meanwhile,
Hovland, compared to those guys, I mean, those guys were big-time criminals. And,
yes.
Like the too big to fail, they were too big to jail.
Yeah, so he gets 10 years in the Hooskow, right? And I'm thinking, good grief, 10 years for what? Meanwhile, John Corzine, he walks free today after billions of dollars in theft and, I mean, just rampant corruption. So I started looking into this, and I found a bill that Representative Sheila Jackson Lee introduced in 2011. It's called the Federal Prison Bureau Nonviolent Offender Relief Act. And I said to myself, good grief, man, this is, again, I'm not one to, I don't trust a single politician out there. I just don't. But I mean, heck, even a broken clock's right twice a day. And here, I think she's right, John. She introduced a bill talking about early release for certain nonviolent offenders. And what it says is early release of certain nonviolent offenders, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the Bureau of Federal Prisons, pursuant to a good time policy, shall release from confinement a prisoner who has served 1/2 or more of his term of imprisonment, including any consecutive term or terms of imprisonment, if that prisoner has attained the age of 45, has never been convicted of a crime of violence, and has not engaged in any violation involving violent conduct or institutional disciplinary regulations. Sounds pretty good. And in an age of sequestration, you would think, well, good grief. If we can release more people, we don't have to hire as many prison guards. We don't need as many prisons. We can actually, reduce the prison population?
Especially when most of the people in prison are nonviolent offenders caught with maybe a little bit of marijuana or some paraphernalia on them.
Exactly. And in some states, marijuana law is really harsh. In other states, it's not. As a matter of fact, the decriminalization of marijuana is really picking up speed here. And as a result, you're not getting as many people in jail. And I'm sure that pisses people off. Especially, I'm not talking about the people that criminal or demonize marijuana. I'm talking about the prison industrial complex, because that is a big source of labor for them. And now that these drugs are being decriminalized, why would you even call it a drug? It's not a drug, it's a damn herb. But anyway, they're being decriminalized, and as a result, they can't afford to lose anybody else. So it's funny, I looked up, I wanted to learn more about how it is that bills like this that would appear to be common sense to the average American, I started to dig in as to why it would be that they'd want to not or not support this bill, or even try to get it just destroyed, gone, see you later. And I started looking into lobbying, John. And so the Center for Responsive Politics brought up the Corrections Corp of America. And I said, Corrections Corps of America? Really? What could that be?
Sounds like somebody's making a profit.
Exactly. The privatization of the prison system. And that is exactly what's going on. Oh, you have your federal prisons, and you have your state pens and your local jails, your county jails. You have all those. But more and more, you're seeing these private prisons pop up. And one of the largest, if not the largest, company that specializes in this is Corrections Corp of America. And so, like, right on their front page, they call themselves America's leader in partnership corrections. It says, welcome to CCA, the nation's leading provider of correctional solutions to federal, state, and local governments. Our company, the first of its kind, was founded in 1983. Our approach to public-private partnership in corrections combines the cost savings and innovation of business with the strict guidelines and consistent oversight of government. Yeah. Strict guidelines and consistent oversight of government. I'm sorry, I had to read that one twice. Oof.
Considering that we have a private prison fairly close to me, actually it's over in Youngstown, Ohio, they're consistently getting lawsuits for violations, human rights violations, civil rights violations, things of that nature. They're always in court.
And I'm sure that's the case because you want to know something, John? At the end of the day, contractors, mercenaries, or these private businesses, and in this case, Correction Corps of America designs, builds, manages, and operates correctional facilities and detention centers on behalf of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, Immigration, and Customs Enforcement, the U.S. Marshals. So they're like a one-stop shop. But what they can do is they can get away with a whole lot more because they're not civil servants. And if that happened in a federal pen, let's say there's a human rights violation in a federal pen by a federal employee, it is a lot different. I know it sounds weird, but I'm telling you, it's a lot different. And contractors can just play ignorant, oh, well, we didn't know, or we weren't informed, or yada, yada, yada. And they can get away with it a lot easier than the government could. So I can totally understand that. But the lobbying in 2012, John, in 2012, you had Correction Corps of America spend $1.9 million in lobbying the federal government to beat that down.
Wow, Joe, they got off pretty cheap. Congressmen must be cheap these days.
Well, it's all about campaign contributions.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's right.
So if you go to the Center of Responsive Politics, and that's opensecrets.org, folks, you can go there and look up any sort of statistics, whether you want to look up politicians, how much they get in campaign contributions, electoral results, analysis of certain issues, influence and lobbying, all of that stuff. Center for Responsive Politics is a great site. It's a gold mine of information that you can use when you're digging up this kind of stuff. So, I'm like, wow, if they're spending that kind of money on this particular issue, why? Why would that be? Why is it so important for them to ensure that people stay in prison, that they maintain a population that has exploded over the past 10 years?
Because each prisoner runs, like here in PA, like $25,000 per person per year. And when you have a prison capable of holding 1,000 inmates, $25,000 per inmate, you're doing pretty damn good. And
yeah,
that's guaranteed for 10, 15, 20 years.
So anyway, I found a great piece by Linda Evans and Eve Goldberg of Global Research. And this was written, John, 12 years ago. But it was one of the most insightful articles on the prison industrial complex that I've seen, and I want to share it with everybody tonight. It's called Prisons Are Big Business: The Prison Industrial Complex and the Global Economy. And here's a little editor's note. It says over 1.8 million people, and again, this is 12 years ago, over 1.8 million people are currently behind bars in the United States. This represents the highest per capita incarceration rate in the history of the world. In 1995 alone, 150 new prisons were built and filled. This monumental commitment to locking up Americans, sizable percentage of the population, is an integral part of the globalization of capital. We'll get into this when we get back. You're not going to believe what I'm about to read you. Don't go away.
Get ready for the epic new documentary adventure ride of your life. Shade the Motion Picture. Hub you into the globalist domain and embellish suburbance film.
Nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Governments do not operate the way you think they do. Banks do not do what you think they do. The police department is not here for what you think it is. Nothing in your world works the way you think it does.
We have to let them know that their world government has been identified, and they thought they'd include a world economy to bring in a worldwide police state, but instead it's going to bring them down.
You have to stand up, speak up, speak out.
Shade the Motion Picture. Order your copy of the DVD today at shadethemotionpicture.com.
Are chemtrail geoengineering programs changing our weather and destroying our environment? Why in the world are they spraying?
They want to create a storm in the southeast, then they'll start engineering out over the North Pacific. That's where the trailies will be.
Find out why critics are calling Why in the World Are They Spraying the most important film that is revolutionizing the environmental movement. Go to whyintheworldaretheyspraying.com for more information.
It's just going to get worse until the point where we're not going to be able to grow anything at all unless it's a Monsanto genetically modified abiotic stress resistant seed.
Why in the World Are They Spraying? New international version with languages available from around the world. Go to whyintheworldaretheyspraying.com for more information.
It's all about money, and weather is another form of commoditizing, a way the Central Command Group can commoditize another form of our life.
Why in the world are they spraying?
And if you control the weather, you're going to control the planet. It's that simple.
IntelliHub.com, just the website you were looking for to get all of your news from. Whether it be health, science, geopolitics, globalism, depopulation, or the ever-increasing police state, IntelliHub.com covers it all. You can expect top-of-the-line daily reports from our reporters and journalists, such as Avalon, JG Vibes, Shepard Ambellis, Derek Bros, Servano Gonzalez, and more. Check out IntelliHub.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Intelligence Hub. IntelliHub.com.
This network heavily relies on listener support. Don't forget to donate.
After my eyes have seen the years and the slow parade of fears without pride, now I want to understand. I have done all that.
Welcome back, folks. Check out our social media pages such as Facebook and Twitter. You can like us and tweet us all just by clicking Facebook and Twitter widgets on the Unbound Radio homepage. Have the truth, so help us spread it far and wide by linking to us through our social media pages. And thanks for helping make Unbound Radio one of the fastest growing talk radio outlets. Joe Joseph and John King here. We're talking now about the prison industrial complex and why it's so important that they maintain and or expand the population of prisons in the United States, already by far and away the largest population in the history of the world in regards to prisoners.
They want to expand them so far, Joe. They went as far as building these extra camps. We call them FEMA camps. Right. You'll know them as rescue centers.
That's right. Like the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex is an interweaving of private business and government interests. Its twofold purpose is profit and social control. Its public rationale is the fight against crime. Not so long ago, communism was the enemy, and communists were demonized as a way of justifying gargantuan military expenditures. Now, fear of crime and the demonization of criminals serve a similar ideological purpose to justify the use of tax dollars for the repression and incarceration of a growing percentage of our population. The omnipresent media blitz about serial killers, missing children, and random violence feeds our fear. In reality, however, most of the criminals we lock up are poor people who commit nonviolent crimes out of economic need. Hence the reason why I brought up the pieces yesterday on how Americans are just under such substantial stress, how it's harder and harder to provide for a family and to survive in a country with so much. Violence occurs in less than 14% of all reported crime, and injuries occur in just 3%. In California, the top 3 charges for those entering prison are, John, what's number 1?
Marijuana possession.
Possession of a controlled substance. What's number 2?
Drug paraphernalia.
Kind of close. Possession of a controlled substance for sale.
Oh.
And the third is robbery. Those are the top 3 crimes for people entering prison in the state of California. Violent crimes like murder, rape, and manslaughter and kidnapping don't even crack the top 10. Like fear of communism during the Cold War, fear of crime is a great selling tool for a dubious product. As with the building and maintenance of weapons and armies, the building and maintenance of prisons are big business. Investment houses, construction companies, architects, and support services such as food, medical, transportation, and furniture all stand to profit by prison expansion. A burgeoning specialty item industry sells fencing, handcuffs, drug detectors, protective vests, and other security devices to prisons. And as the Cold War winds down and the crime war heats up, defense industry giants like Westinghouse are retooling and lobbying Washington for their share of the domestic law enforcement market. Night enforcer goggles used in the Gulf War, electronic hot wire fencing. So hot, NATO chose it for its high-risk installations, and other equipment once used by the military are now being marketed for the criminal justice system. Oh, what a coincidence, John.
Oh, here's one that's that ought to fit right nicely into this little box that you're creating, Joe. My local vocational school here in the county has a class called Personal Security Assistant, and that's exactly what they are. They're teaching these kids how to be cops.
Yeah.
That early in school.
Sure. You know, communication companies like AT&T, Sprint, and MCI are getting into the act as well, gouging prisoners with exorbitant phone calling rates, often 6 times the normal long-distance charge. Smaller firms like Correctional Communications Corp., dedicated solely to prison phone business, provide computerized phones. It's amazing. When we get back to talk more about this, Stay.
For hundreds of years, an elite group of oligarchs have ruled the land, fueled by a legacy of sex, money, power and greed. In the last 60 years, their power has become more consolidated as they have become more organised. Their own white papers and other documents show the diabolic plans they have in store for the population. Shade the Motion Picture. Order your copy of the DVD today. ShadeTheMotionPicture.com.
We all know the importance of having storable foods, but what about when the food runs out? What then? For real food independence, you need a supply of non-hybrid seeds. Introducing the Survival Seed Vault from MyPatriotSupply.com. The Survival Seed Vault is sealed for freshness and includes 20 varieties of easy-to-grow non-hybrid seeds for only $37.95. For less than $40, you've got real food independence, and the Survival Seed Vault includes detailed planting and seed-saving instructions. Imagine the barter power you'll have when the food supply does collapse. Right now, save $9 instantly when you buy 3 or more Survival Seed Vaults from MyPatriotSupply.com. Same-day shipping on all orders, plus free shipping on orders over $49. Call 866-229-0927. That's 866-229-0927. Or discover more emergency preparedness products at MyPatriotSupply.com. That's MyPatriotSupply.com.
Get ready for the epic new documentary adventure ride of your life. Shade the Motion Picture. A view into the globalist domain. An Embella Suburban's film.
Nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Governments do not operate the way you think they do. Banks do not do what you think they do. The police department is not here for what you think it is. Nothing in your world works the way you think it does.
We have let them know that their world government has been identified, and they thought they'd include the world economy to bring in a worldwide police state, but instead it's going to bring them down.
You have to stand up, speak out.
Shade the Motion Picture. Order your copy of the DVD today at ShadeTheMotionPicture.com.
IntelliHub.com, just the website you were looking for to get all of your news from. Whether it be health, science, geopolitics, globalism, depopulation, or the ever-increasing police state, IntelliHub.com covers it all. You can expect top-of-the-line daily reports from our reporters and journalists, such as Avalon, JG Vibes, Shepard Ambellis, Derek Bros, Servano Gonzalez, and more. Check out IntelliHub.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Intelligence Hub. IntelliHub.com.
Did you know that you don't have to be in front of your computer to listen to Unbound Radio? Now you can listen to Unbound Radio on your smartphone. Just download the TuneIn app at your Google or Apple store and do a search for Unbound Radio. Save us as a preset, and you can take Unbound Radio with you anytime, anywhere. Unbound Radio on TuneIn, your source for truth in a society of lies.
Unbound Radio. It just feels right.
Is there a juicy part in it for me?
Welcome back, folks. Well, we're talking about the prison industrial complex, Johnny King and I. And, Johnny, you know, talking about all the companies that gouge or take part in it, it's amazing the vast network of companies that profit from the federal prison system, or just the prison system in general. One of the fastest growing sectors of the prison industrial complex is private correction companies. Investment firm Smith Barney is part owner of a prison in Florida. American Express and General Electric have invested in private prison construction in Oklahoma and Tennessee. Correctional Corporation of America, one of the largest private prison owners, already operates internationally with 48 facilities in 11 states, John, Puerto Rico, the UK, and Australia. Why, they are experts, my friend.
Makes you wonder how many companies are involved with this, Joe. Who supplies them with all their goods and services?
Yeah, that's a good question. Under contract by governments to run jails and prisons and paid a fixed sum per prisoner. The profit motives mandates that these firms operate as cheaply and as efficiently as possible. This means lower wages for staff, no unions, and fewer services for prisoners. Private contracts also mean less public scrutiny, John.
Oh, that would explain why the prisoners in a private institution often get beat, because their guards, their overseers, their lords are usually high school punks that's been given a badge.
That's right.
And paid $8 an hour.
That's right. Private contracts mean less public scrutiny. Prison owners are raking in billions by cutting corners with which harm prisoners, such as substandard diets, extreme overcrowding, and abuses by poorly trained personnel. It's been documented numerous times and can be expected in these institutions, which are unabashedly about making money. Prisons are also a leading rural growth industry. With traditional agriculture being pushed aside by agribusiness, many rural American communities are facing hard times. Economically depressed areas are falling over each other to secure a prison facility of their own. Prisons are seen as a source of jobs in construction, local vendors, and prison staff, as well as a source of tax revenues. An average prison has a staff of several hundred employees and an annual payroll of several $1 million.
Well, Joe, I'll tell you what, that might sound all well and good, but my wife comes from a very small town in Michigan.
Yeah.
It was economically hit hard. It's just as well as any other town in Michigan's hit, right, because Michigan's one of the hardest hit economic states that we have. But anyways, they decided they were going to build a state prison in this town. Everybody thought, yay, okay, jobs. Well, that didn't last very long, because in the span of 3 years, the town ended up getting, well, it's pretty much gone now, because the prison destroyed it. The inmates get out, they would stay there in town. They would reoffend, crime rate went up, the good people moved away. And now you have the prisoners' families that move into town because their family members doing time in the prison. Those prisoners get out, they stay with family local.
Sounds like a microcosm of Detroit.
Basically, yes.
So anyways, as like any industry, the prison economy needs raw materials. In this case, the raw materials are prisoners. The prison industrial complex can grow only if more and more people are incarcerated, even if crime rates drop. 3 strikes and mandatory minimums, harsh fixed sentences without parole, are 2 examples of the legal superstructure quickly being put into place to guarantee that the prison population will grow. The growth of the prison industrial complex is inextricably tied to the fortunes of labor. Ever since the onset of the Reagan-Bush years in 1980, workers in the United States have been under siege. Aggressive union busting, corporate deregulation, and especially the flight of capital in search of cheaper labor markets have been crucial factors in the downward plight of American workers. One wave of capital flight occurred in the 1970s. Manufacturing, such as textiles in the Northeast, moved south to South Carolina, to Tennessee and Alabama, non-union states where wages were low. during the 1980s, many more industries closed up shop, moving on to the more competitive atmospheres of Mexico, Brazil, or Taiwan, where wages were a mere fraction of those in the U.S. and environmental health and safety standards were much lower. Most seriously hurt by these plant closures and layoffs were African Americans and others semi-skilled workers in urban centers who lost their decent-paying industrial jobs. Into the gaping economic hole left by the exodus of jobs from U.S. cities has rushed another economy, John, the drug economy.
One hand washes the other, Joe.
Mm-hmm. The war on drugs, launched by President Reagan in the mid-'80s, has been fought on interlocking international and domestic fronts. At the international level, the war on drugs has been both a cynical cover-up of U.S. government involvement in the drug trade, as well as justification for U.S. military intervention and control in the Third World. Over the last 50 years, a primary goal of U.S. foreign policy and the military-industrial complex has been to fight communism and protect corporate interests. To this end, the U.S. government has with regularity formed strategic alliances with drug dealers throughout the world. At the conclusion of World War II, the OSS, the precursor to the CIA, allied itself with heroin traders on the docks of Marseille in an effort to wrest power away from communist dock workers. During the Vietnam War, the CIA aided the heroin-producing Hmong tribesmen in the Golden Triangle area. In return for cooperation with the U.S. government's war against the Viet Cong and other national liberation forces, the CIA flew local heroin out of Southeast Asia and into America. It's no accident that heroin addiction in the U.S. rose exponentially in the 1960s. Nor is it an accident that cocaine began to proliferate in the United States during the 1980s. Central America is the strategic halfway point for air travel between Colombia and the United States. The Contra War against the Sandinista Nicaragua, as well as the war against the National Liberation Forces in Contreras, Oliver North and friends found other ways to fund the Contra resupply operations, in part through drug dealing. Planes loaded with arms for the Contras took off from the southern United States, offloaded their weapons on private landing strips in Honduras, then loaded up with cocaine for the return trip. And do you remember the 1996 San Jose Mercury piece about the CIA involvement, John, in the drug trade?
Oh, absolutely. The drug and arms trade in the gangs of Los Angeles, I believe it. Something like that.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, it's amazing how they flew all of this stuff out of the South. And I want to say it was like Arkansas, because the Clintons were involved in this, in this whole thing. So all of this feeds into the prison system. Because you have more people now being convicted of crimes. Many of these crimes have mandatory minimum sentences. And so you're just constantly feeding the prison system, which I think is well over, I think it's over 3 million people now in the United States incarcerated.
So instead of passing laws to help reduce the prison population, they outsource, let's just say they outsource the jobs to private prisons and pay the private prisons about 25 to 35, depending on the state where you live, $1,000 per person per year. Yeah. And when you have someone that's mandated by the state to be there for 3, 4, 10, 20 plus years, that's guaranteed income. And when you're only paying the guards $8.50, $9 an hour, and you don't really care about if you violate their civil rights, their constitutional rights, or what, who are they going to complain to? Who's going to care?
Yeah, well, let me say this. And I want to put this in perspective for everybody, okay? So you have an American worker who once upon a time, say, makes $15 an hour, loses his job when the company relocates to China, where workers are paid $2 a day. So unemployed and alienated from a society indifferent to his needs, he becomes involved in the drug economy or some other outlawed means of survival. Because where are you going to go find a job when everybody else is looking for a job? It's hard. Again, this was written in 2001. In 2013, it's not only that, but we're looking at austerity coming down the pipe. So that's only going to compound things. They're not going to have enough room in the prisons, which is why John was right in that they've built FEMA camps, or what did you call them, John?
I believe they will be referred to as rescue centers.
Rescue centers, right. So anyway, you have this kind of stuff, right? That's there. So you're going to have an exploding population. So this guy here, you know, he's unemployed, gets involved in the drug economy and, you know, starts making some money that way. He's arrested, put in prison, and put to work. You know what his new salary now is, John?
Oh, about $15 a month.
22 cents an hour. That's what you get in the prison system. I think it's actually now up to 25 cents an hour. I mean, they're talking big money.
Well, when you need a 2-year college degree to ask somebody if they'd like cheese on that hamburger, for somebody who's just a high school graduate, that doesn't leave a lot of room for maneuvering.
No, you're absolutely right, John. Now, for private business, prison labor is like a pot of gold. No strikes, no union organizing, no unemployment insurance or workers' compensation to pay, no language problem, as in a foreign country. New Leviathan prisons are being built with thousands of eerie acres of factories inside the walls. Prisoners do data entry for Chevron, make phone calls and telephone reservations for major airlines. They raise hogs. They shovel manure, make circuit boards, limousines, waterbeds, and lingerie for Victoria's Secret. All at a fraction of the cost of free labor. Prisoners can be forced to work for pennies because they have no rights. Think about it. Very important things. Some prison enterprises are state-run. Inmates working at Unicor, again, I've said that many times, they make recycled furniture and work 40 hours a week for about $40 a month. So that's what we're dealing with in this country, folks. If you look at China, China's a communist country. They have a very large slave labor system, or prison camps, they call them. Labor camps. That is what we're going to. You've seen the movie 1984 or read the book. I'm telling you, folks, we are there. And it won't be long before you're going to get us back.
For hundreds of years, an elite group of oligarchs have ruled the land, fueled by a legacy of sex, money, power and greed. In the last 60 years, their power has become more consolidated as they have become more organised. Their own white papers and other documents show the diabolic plans they have in store for the population. Shade, the motion picture. Order your copy of the DVD today. ShadeTheMotionPicture.com.
In an emergency situation, would you drink contaminated water? You could if you had the amazing LifeStraw from MyPatriotSupply.com. LifeStraw is the most advanced personal water filter available today. It filters contaminated water from almost any source. LifeStraw is lightweight and compact, perfect for hiking, camping, or in an emergency like a flood. LifeStraw is easy to clean, comes with a 1-year warranty, and has been used worldwide since 2005. Get the amazing LifeStraw personal water filter at MyPatriotSupply.com. Plus, check out Survival Seed Vault, 20 seed varieties for only $37.95. Tatler canning lids, long-term storable foods as low as $69.95, and much more at MyPatriotSupply.com. Enjoy stress-free shipping on all orders over $49. Call 866-229-0927 or visit MyPatriotSupply.com. That's 866-229-0927. MyPatriotSupply.com for emergency preparedness, self-reliance, and food independence.
Get ready for the epic new documentary adventure ride of your life. Shade the motion picture. Hub you into the globalist domain and embellish and burn film.
Nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Governments do not operate the way you think they do. Banks do not do what you think they do. The police department does not care for what you think it is. Nothing in your world works the way you think it does.
We are here to let them know that their world government has been identified, and they thought they could quote the world economy to bring in a worldwide police state, but instead it's going to bring them down.
You have to stand up, speak out.
Shade the motion picture. Order your copy of the DVD today at ShadeTheMotionPicture.com.
Did you know that you don't have to be in front of your computer to listen to Unbound Radio? Now you can listen to Unbound Radio on your smartphone. Just download the TuneIn app at your Google or Apple store and do a search for Unbound Radio. Save us as a preset, and you can take Unbound Radio with you anytime, anywhere. Unbound Radio on TuneIn, your source for truth in a society of lies.
The power is in your hands. Use it. Unbound Radio.
After my eyes have seen the years and the slow parade of fears without pride. Now I want to understand. I have done all that I could to see the evil and the good without hiding. You must help me if you can. Doctor, my eyes.
Welcome back, folks. Coming up at 10 p.m. Eastern is Down the Rabbit Hole with Popeye. His special guest, Charlotte Iserby. You may know her. The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America was a book she wrote. Fantastic book. A must read. Especially those that are considering homeschooling. I just cannot recommend things like books like hers enough. So make sure you tune in. Down the Rabbit Hole with Popeye coming up with Charlotte Iserby, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Unbound Radio. Wrapping things up on the prison industrial complex. The proliferation of prisons in the United States is one piece of a puzzle called the globalization of capital. Since the end of the Cold War, capitalism has gone on an international business offensive, no longer impeded by an alternative socialist economy or the threat of national liberation movements supported by the Soviet Union or China. Transnational corporations see the world as their oyster. So we have things like NAFTA and GATT. We have organizations like the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund. Guess what? The New World Order. And John, of course you know that slavery is one of the primary goals of the New World Order, outside of extermination.
Oh, absolutely. And this all ties together because now as a corporation, you can own and control all the food that's fed to the people, and you can get the labor for the people to process your food to feed the population from the prisons that you own.
That's right. The number of people in U.S. prisons has more than tripled. And this is in 2001. And, this article in 2001 said in the past 17 years, from 500,000 in 1980 to 1.8 million in 1997. And now I think it's up over 3 million people. It's just amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. 1% of the population in prison. And I'm sure it's actually more than that. But think about it. Go, folks, and look at unicore.gov. Just go there and see the products that they offer. Where does that money go, John? Where does the money go? You know, if we're funding the federal prison system, where does all that profit go to?
Ends up at the banks, Joe.
That's great. You know, in the end, I guess it all ends up there, doesn't it? Whether it be the Federal Reserve or Goldman Sachs, it doesn't matter what it is. These corrupt entities, these vile demons, and that's what they are.
The perpetrator must return to the scene of the crime. The money must return to its creator.
Absolutely. I mean, I just cannot stress enough, folks. This scam, that's what this is. You have to understand it. Everything goes full circle. If we don't talk about this now, HR223, pass it along to people. Make it known. We want this bill passed. We want it introduced into Congress for a debate because we don't want this trend to go on. You want this, we have to break this trend of incarceration in this country, John. It's absolutely out of control.
Well, that's going to be pretty tough, Joe, considering that most judges are elected and some of these private corporations love to give campaign contributions to the judges.
Boy, I can't even begin to tell you enough how right you are.
We had one judge here in eastern Pennsylvania that was convicted of actually taking money from a children's prison for sending children to that prison.
Yep. That's what I'm saying. It's an incredible uphill battle that we have to fight because the resources at the disposal of these companies like Corrections Corp of America is just so vast because look at this. I mean, the 25 cents an hour labor rate? Are you kidding? I mean, these people are gold. So understand, folks, that, well, go ahead, John, finish your thought.
It's no wonder everything's illegal, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's just right. And it's like I've said before, I've heard it said, one of the people I really enjoy to watch on YouTube, Nut and Fancy, said it best. When everything's illegal, nothing's illegal. That's the way we have to view things, folks. Tomorrow night,
that's about right.
Tomorrow night, John, our guest is John Phillips. He's going to be a new host here on Unbound Radio in the next couple of weeks. We're going to have him on board. We're going to be talking about the Boston bombing. So it should be a good night of radio. That's the show tonight, folks. We'll pick it up tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Stay tuned. Down the rabbit hole with Popeye. Have a good night, everybody.